My name's Hemi. I'm an actor. I also run theatre classes for preschool kids, nurseries, and I do storytelling too.
My name is Patrick Ryan, and I work full-time really as a storyteller. I'm also a part-time research fellow at the George Ewart Evans Centre for Storytelling.
These are two of my books. This one is The Big Hair Affair, and this one is the Penguin Who Wanted to Fly. I love telling my stories because it can transform myself and the audience into a different world.
Now, rub the stories on your hands so you can feel things in the stories I'm going to tell you. My storytelling style, I hope it's conversational. It can be performative, a bit theatrical, but it's something I grew up with. So when I'm telling a story, I'm more hearing the voices of great aunties and cousins of my grandmother who first told me stories, and my parents. And in my family, it was always very conversational.
Can you be a bear who can growl the loudest?
I kind of channel the inner child in me, and I try to get as excited as I possibly can about the story that I'm telling.
Stripes? Ow! Garth, Lauren. I think expressive, lots of different characters, different voices, fun, I think, and lively.
You need to engage your audience with you. If you're doing a book and there's a lot of counting in it and the children aren't engaged in the counting or they're not enjoying it, do something else. Look at the colors or look at the pictures. Or I always like acting out the characters, if thinking about the emotions of the story or the characters, and make them do like an excited face or angry face. I'm talking about preschool children here, obviously. Or if there is an action in the book or in the story, there's nothing that tells you they can't do it, so they can get up and climb the mountain or crawl through the bushes, whatever it is that is happening in the story, so they feel part of it and they feel excited about living the adventure.
Somebody who can not worry so much about what they appear to be. When I read my stories, I do hold my books up because they are storybooks, so they have very lively illustrations, and the illustrations are very much part of the book. Because I learn them off by heart and because I've written them, I don't have to hold the book and look at it. Sometimes I do to remind myself, but because I know them off by heart, I can show them the pictures like this, and I can just check that everybody can see. And I think if you're reading from a book, there's lots of things going on in the page that might not necessarily be in the written word.
With storytelling, oral storytelling, traditional storytelling, you don't have to stick to the words of the page. You don't have to tell the story exactly the way you read it or exactly the way you heard it.
Voices, I find, if there are lots of different characters, you can voice them differently, and that will definitely can create comedy, can create a little bit of rhythm and energy into the story rather than just doing it in one voice. That also goes for, even if there aren't characters, you can go quiet and loud, and you can be excited about what has happened. You can use a lot of exclamation like, wow, can you believe that just happened? And ask them questions, engage them. It's not theatre in the sense that they're sitting and you're performing, but it's immersive theatre, so they need to be part of it.
A lot of stories will have repetition and rhythm, like in The Three Bears. Goldilocks does things 3 times. The bears say the same words. That creates a rhythm, and it's those things that pull the child into the story, and they often will automatically join in, and that's part of the enjoyment. If there's been some miscommunication between organisers, so that maybe they've told me I'm going to have a certain age and we have a totally different age, but if you have enough stories, if you come with enough material, you can be flexible. You might have a group like we had today, where we had some little children and some older children, and we had the ones in the middle that the stories were kind of more aimed at. But everyone took part. you have to kind of get used to the interruptions and know how to incorporate them and glide over them. But when you're first starting, that can put you off. But with experience, you begin to learn that some children listen, but in an active way, and they're not really being naughty. They're just listening their way, and there are ways I think you can pull them back into the story.
My advice for anybody who's telling a story for the first time would be to know the story really well, so that you don't panic when you're telling it and go, oh, what came after that? Because nothing is more off-putting than a storyteller who doesn't know the story, because you're like, I want to hear what's happening next, and we're now stopped. But if you know it, then you will relax and be calm, and it's just a story. It's not a business presentation. It's not, your speech to be elected the next prime minister. It's just a story, and enjoy it.
Familiarise yourself with the story. Maybe record yourself and listen to it. I record myself on my iPhone, and I can listen to it on the bus, so it goes in and I remember it. And the more I listen to it, the easier it is for me to remember it when I'm sitting in front of an audience.
I sometimes, use warm-ups, especially if it's a group of children I haven't met before. It's a good way for them to see me being very silly, and for them to be silly as well, so that you have a rapport going between you before you start, because you will need their attention, and for them to give that to you, they need to trust you, and they need to know they're in good hands. And that's a good way, a warm-up is a good way to establish that rapport and get to know you a little bit. Another tip might be to introduce the story before you start telling, and maybe the main characters, so that they feel familiar with it and with them before they start, and they know more or less what's coming. So if the premise of the story is a jungle, you can talk about the jungle a little bit, and maybe make them do some jungle noises. Or if there is a lion in the story, you can ask them to be a lion, so they identify with the character, they know what's coming, they're familiar with it.
The key is to get the children involved as soon as possible. I think if you try to make them behave themselves, like they have to be in assembly or school, that can be a bit restricting for them.
Sometimes things may not work. It's acknowledging that and skipping quickly maybe that section and moving to something else that might work a bit better.
Enjoy it. Only tell a story that you like. Don't tell a story because you think you ought to tell it or because it's for some learning objective. Stories are meant to be enjoyed. They're meant to be for fun. And it's supposed to be the teller and the listener enjoying it equally in different ways. But it's relax, enjoy it. And if you're really nervous, and if it's a family situation, or if you're a teacher or a nursery teacher, just remember you're the most important adult in the child's life. They see you every day. And so if you make a mistake, the children will love much more the fact you're sharing a story with them.
It's easy to criticise yourself, especially the first time, but actually just even getting up there and telling a story is a major achievement. So I pat yourself on the back.